Hi, everybody. Hi, Todd. We're going to wait and see who all shows up. We'll give it another minute or two, and then we'll get started. Thank you, Todd. Gustavo will start in just a minute or two. Just making sure everybody who wants to watch is watching. About one more minute. Hi, everybody who's coming on right now. If you want to say in the chat who you are, uh, that might be good. Okay, I guess we'll get started. Well, my name is David Cain. I am a professional juggler and juggling historian. I'm the owner of the Museum of Juggling History, which is where we're at right now. And today's topic is Great Female Jugglers of the Past. And that title comes from this book, which I wrote. It was the first of the 12 juggling history books I've written so far. Great female jugglers of the past. And so we're going to look at different props from the Museum of Juggling History that belong to some of the great female jugglers of the past. And if you have questions, feel free to ask any questions in the chat as we go along. I'll try and keep up. The museum has lots of props from incredible female jugglers. We're going to look at mainly the jugglers who are female jugglers who are no longer performing or have passed away. We've got some incredible female jugglers represented in the museum, including one who's watching us right now. Hi, Fur. We'll get started with Lottie Brunn. Lottie is certainly one of the most famous female jugglers of all time. A sister of Francis Brunn, started out as his assistant, but eventually became known all over the world as the fastest female juggler in the world. And so I've got one of her, this is what she used as clubs. They're kind of what I would call a cage head club. Or a spring head club, I think is what she called them. And really, really incredible prop. She would juggle 3 and 4 of these very, very fast. They do juggle very, very fast. They're not very easy to juggle with. You can't do a whole lot of different tricks with them, but you can juggle them fast. And so I love having that. I also have a spinning ball of hers, which is still on display. I didn't have enough room on the table here, but I've got 3 other balls of hers. I've got this ball, which she would use for 4 and 5 balls. She would do splits with 4 of these while balancing a larger ball on a head pedestal, and she would juggle 5 of these sometimes. I've got this ball, which she used for her 3-ball routine, where she would juggle super, super fast using it. And then I've got this slightly smaller one, which she would use for 4 and 5 balls for her speed juggling as well. She would do a 4-ball shower with this and do 5 balls and some things with the smaller one. And then I've got one of her color change rings here as well. So she would do up to 8 rings. So that is one of those. Can everyone hear me and see me okay? I guess I should ask. Yes? No? All right. Well, the next, I'll assume you all are seeing me okay. Good, good. This is one of my favorite props in the whole museum. This is one of the plates that was used by the juggler Trixie. Trixie, I've got actually a picture of her here juggling this plate. But she would juggle 6 of these plates, these wooden plates, and she would balance a ball on her head at the same time. And she could run the 6 plates for seemingly forever. And she would even juggle 6 plates while bouncing the ball on her head, while ice skating, while 4 blinding follow spots would be on her. And she was just amazing with this, with that. She, one of the greatest jugglers of all time. My twin brother, Scott Cain, wrote an entire book about her. You can look that up online. Oh, and there is a big chapter of her, really, of almost all these jugglers. I think maybe all these jugglers have a chapter in this book. So that's one of Trixie's plates. There are very few of her plates that are still around, or any props that are still around. We have 5 plates, and we've got a mouse, 2 mouse sticks, I think, or 1 mouse stick. I think it's 5 plates and 1 mouse stick of hers still exist. All the other of her props accidentally got sold at auction, and we have no idea whatever happened to them. Next we have Selma Bratz. Selma Bratz was she was during the time of Cinquevalli and Cara and Salerno. She was at the turn of the century, and she was an amazing juggler. She was pretty much universally considered the greatest female juggler of that time. And this is the only remaining prop of hers. It is a color-changing torch. There'd be a chemical fuel in the handle, and as it burned, the flame would change color, and it would come out the grill. There are holes all throughout this head piece, and it would change color in the dark. And I've got pictures of someone juggling this exact torch. And so that's the only remaining prop of hers that we know to still exist. And so that's incredible to still have. We've got Eva Vida. Eva Vida from Hungary, incredible juggler. Lots of videos of her online. But I love this club. It's got a mother of pearl handle, and the body of it is covered in all these rhinestones and sequins, and it's squeezable. It's plush. And she would juggle 5 of these and with under the leg throws and everything. And she was really incredible, a really great person too. I got to know her shortly before she had passed away a couple years ago. So we have that. And if I can get out here, we also have one of her color changing rings, red on one side and mother of pearl on the other. And she would juggle 6 of these, and then she would do 5 with a balance. And she always also do color changes with 5 and 6, I believe, at least 5. So that's wonderful to have. She also was the winner of the Rastelli competition held in Bergamo, Italy. So she won the Rastelli Trophy, which is kind of like the Academy Award for jugglers back in the 60s and early 70s. And I should be sometime soon getting her Rastelli Trophy. And so that will be incredible to have here in the museum. Let's see. Next, I guess, is Betty Gorham. Betty was an American juggler back in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, and she just passed away a few years ago. But she is famous for being the very first person to ever join the IJA. Once the IJA was founded, she was the very first person to join the IJA. So I've got one of her clubs here made by Harry Lind, and I've got one of her spinning balls. She was really a really talented ball spinner, and let's see if I can do this. This ball still spins quite well for being from the 1950s. And I have one of her head pedestals, and so that's pretty cool. It's weighted on one side and hollow on the other side, so the weighted side down makes the center of gravity very low. So those are wonderful to have. Edith Sandor is a juggler from, I want to say Denmark or Hungary. Let me look it up. I know I'm wrong. Let me see. I don't want to mess this up too bad because she's still alive. Let's see. Finland. There it is. She's from Finland. And this is one of the really neat props of hers. She juggled in the, I think at least the 60s, and I think the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And this is actually a prop that I use. I don't use this version of it, but another version of my own version of this I use in my act sometimes. It's a horn that you wear on your head, and then you toss these rings really high up in the air. She would toss them like 30 feet up in the air in a UFO throw, so it stays in this orientation. And then at the last minute, you get right underneath it and you catch it on the horn, catch them on the horn while it's on your head. And so that's a great trick. This trick goes back to at least the middle of the 1800s. It was done by Henri Auguste and several other famous jugglers of that time. And so that's a really cool prop. Let's see. Are there any current questions? No, we're still going. Ursula Hill Loppe is the next person. She was married to Gus Loppe, but before she married him, she was a big juggling star in the 1940s in Germany. And I've got 2 of her props here. I've got one of her ball end clubs. She would juggle 5 of these. And she tried juggling normal clubs at one time and juggled them for a little bit and decided she didn't like them and went back to these. So it's got all these sequins on the end and a wooden handle. And she would juggle 5 of these in her act. She would juggle 7 rings. She would do some great combination tricks. And I've got her clear acrylic head pedestal here. She would do Frances Brun style, Lottie Brun style combination trick, and this would be her head pedestal. And she performed all the way from the 1920s until the 1970s, and she was famous for never warming up. She would not warm up at all before performances. She'd go right out there and she'd do 5 of these. She'd do 7 rings and all this other stuff, but she would never, ever, ever warm up. And that's just a neat story about her. The next juggler is Luli Perezoff. Luli came from a juggling family. Her father, or parents, and uncles and aunts were part of the Perezoff restaurant juggling troupe, and she was a child prodigy. When she was very young, she learned to juggle quite well, and she would juggle. I've got 8 of her balls here, and the reason I've got 8 is that she would juggle 8 balls in the air and also 8 balls off of a drum. She was an incredible ball juggler. We don't have any video of her, but we've got lots and lots of pictures. So I do have a chapter about her in this book, but I've also got an expanded chapter on her in one of my new books that has just come out this month. And so she also was a ring juggler. I've got 6 of her rings here. And so when she was like 7 years old, she was performing 5 and 6 rings, and she was doing 5 ball bouncing already at that time. But eventually, like I said, she juggled 8 balls in the air and off of a drum. And we're very pleased to have these props of hers in the collection. Let's see how we're doing. All right, we're doing great. I've got some props from 2 famous female juggling groups of the past. The first one is the Juggling Jewels. Juggling Jewels were a British troupe of 5 women who started in, I believe it's 1918. And they performed all the way until the 1960s. They would have some roster changes, but they were very, very famous all over the world. And I've got one of their juggling hoops or rings. It's kind of more ringy. It's like a very large ring. And they would pass these. And I've got one of their clubs here. This is a Harry Lynn club, but it was made especially for them to be a little bit smaller and to be a little bit lighter than a normal Harry Lynn club. It's wooden. It's a hollow wooden club, and they tend to be very heavy. Now, one thing that they would do is they would advertise that they would pay, this is back in the 1920s or 30s, they'd pay $1,000 to any woman who could juggle clubs better than the best club juggler in their troupe. And that was a huge amount of money at that time, and they never paid it out because they never found anyone who was a better club juggler, or a woman who was a better club juggler than their best troupe member. I've also got, you can see right above my head, that green tub box that appears to be right above my head. That's got a whole bunch more Juggling Jewels props in it, including tennis rackets. It's got more of the hoops, and it's got a bunch of tennis rackets. They would juggle tennis rackets as well. Those are the 3 props um, clubs, hoop, large rings, and tennis rackets. And let's see if I can find a picture or two of them. I probably should have done this all along to show you some photos from this, but here you can probably see some of the pictures of them. We're on a time delay, so I'm not sure how well this is showing up. No, it's not too bad. All right. Oh, you can even see some of the large rings right there. And here are some other pictures of them. Oh, before I forget, before I get to the other juggling group, I almost forgot our cover model here. This is Chris Holt, and you can see these 3 clubs there in the photo, hopefully, on the cover. And I've got one of those clubs right here in my hand. She was a very, very famous, she was the most famous hair hanging juggler of all time. And she would do ball spinning, club juggling, ball juggling, spin hoops and rings all over her body and other things while being hauled, 100 feet up in the air to the top of a circus ring. And she is still alive. She lives in Sarasota, Florida. She's in her 70s. I visited her not long ago, and she is a wonderful, wonderful person. So we're very blessed to have this club and some other of her props here in the museum. All right, back to the last of these props. We've got a Harry Lynn club and some rings here, very cool rings, from the Juggling Gems. And the Juggling Gems were 2 sisters, Rita and Francine Rose. They're from the United States, and they performed in the 1950s, maybe the 40s. I think it was mainly during the 50s. They started as children, and when they were, preteen to teenagers, they were on TV like 50 times, if I recall correctly. And eventually they had separate performing careers, and Francine is still alive, but Rita has passed away. But these are some of their really neat props. I love the look of these old props. Very different than what we have today. So the museum also has props from, as I said earlier, jugglers that are still working, still performing. We've got Nally Interline. We've got Judy Finelli, who is still coaching. We've got Fur Sumano. We've got, let's see, Gina Schwartzman Christiani. We've got Francoise Rocher. And we've got Ashley Ellis. And I'm sure we've got a couple others as well. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, about any of these jugglers I've talked about, I would love to try and answer any question I can. Let's see, describe the props in reference to modern ones, weight, speed, and balance. Well, in general, they're worse in weight, speed, and balance. They tend to be very heavy, like Eva Vita's club here is really top heavy compared to what we usually use nowadays. Obviously, the Harry Ling clubs are much, much heavier than what we use nowadays. Um, you wouldn't believe how badly balanced Lottie Brun's club here is. It would be horrible for anything other than real speed juggling. Um, uh, this was almost all these props were from before the time of mass-produced props, and the closest thing we had would be Harry Ling clubs. Harry Lin was the main prop maker in the United States from 1920 to 1960, and so that was pretty standard. But it's still, by today's standards, it's much heavier. It's all wood. It's hollow wood, but it's all wood, and so and the rings were homemade. Um, like these rings from Luli Perizov, they're flat on one side and they're rounded on the other side. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that would be really irritating to most modern jugglers. But this was probably made for something else, and they said, "Oh, that would make a good juggling ring," and they just wrapped it in tape. So you used what you could use. Is the museum your house? Yes, it is the majority. I own 3 houses. It's the majority of one of the houses. It's in 5 rooms of this house. And I have jugglers from all over the world come and visit. And so if you're ever near Cincinnati or Dayton, Ohio, I live right between those two. You're welcome to try and contact me and schedule a visit. Like I said, I do have jugglers from all over the world come to visit. Gina Schwartzman, yes, like I said, I've got some stuff of hers, her hat and club. She's one of my closest friends. Do you prefer Russian shells or cloth-filled balls? I'm a beanbag guy myself, but it's when I started juggling, they didn't have Russian balls, so or at least we didn't use them here in the U.S. or in the West much. So, any other questions? And let me grab a prop or two to show you. All right. I've got here from Francoise Rocher, I've got one of her batons that she juggles 7 with and flashes 8 with. It's a metal baton. It's really heavy. It really hurts. And it's amazing that she can juggle 7 and 8 of these. And when she was a child, this is a kind of a homemade wooden club that she learned to juggle clubs with. So that's pretty cool. This is one of Gina Schwartzman's spinning hats that she takes a stick and spins it. She's amazingly good at that. And whatever could this be? This is one of Fur's hoops that we proudly display here in the museum. So, any other questions? Are you all still with me? There it is. There are female jugglers that I would still love to have represented in the museum. Jenny Jager is one. Unfortunately, when Jenny Jager, if you don't know Jenny Jager, she was a juggler in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, and maybe not 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, And she was when she was around 15 years old. Sorry, 15 years old. She flashed 10 balls in her act. She did lots of amazing tricks. But when she retired, she ordered all of her props to be destroyed, and the only things that were left were her son saved 3 of her balls. They're all sequined and jeweled, and he's got those. Uh, but those are the only props of hers that still remain. Um, I would love to get something from Kathy Goltini. Kathy was another incredible juggler from the early part of the 1900s. She did lots of gentleman juggler type tricks, but since Kara and Salerno and those folks were called gentleman jugglers, she was the lady juggler. So she did some amazing things. Let's see if I can. This is some of the illustrations and pictures of Kathy Goltini and some of the things that she did. Don't know if you all can see those. She would juggle 8 balls off of a drum. Here's one of her most famous tricks. She would balance a couch on her forehead and juggle 4 cushions. That's a pretty amazing trick. So I would love some things from her. But if you had this book, you can look through that and see a lot of these props and a lot of the jugglers we've been talking about. If not, you can always get it. But also, a lot of the content from this book is online from 2 e-juggle articles I wrote several years ago, 3 or 4, probably about 4 years ago. And so you can see some of this. The book has a lot more in it, but you can see some videos and certainly lots of pictures from all these incredible jugglers. Somebody says all these cats doing 8 on stage. Yeah, yeah. It's there were a lot of incredible juggling tricks that people did that we just don't see nowadays at all. Back then it was you're either incredibly good so you can survive, or you're not going to make any money. And so people worked all day, every day on being the very best they could be. Any other questions? Wow, 17 people watching now. You people that just joined us, you're missing out on all this stuff that we talked about. Maybe you can go back and watch it. I don't know if you can or not. But we've just looked at all the different props from great female jugglers of the past that are housed here in the Museum of Juggling History. And is this going to be a lecture series? Well, every month for Patreon members, we have a different topic. Last month was danger props throughout history. So we looked at knives and swords and battle axes and torches and all types of things going back to from the 1800s till now, and kind of the history of them. We've done we just have a different topic every week. I think we're doing this one for free for everyone to watch, but usually it's for Patreon members who support the IJA financially. That's a good question. Any other questions? While we're waiting to see if there are, I will do a plug here that I am the fest director for next year for the IJA. It is the last week of June, June 24th, June 30th. It's in, that's a lot earlier than normal. Usually it's in July. It's in the last week of June this year or next year. It's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we're going to have some great stuff. It's going to be the busiest, most jam-packed IJA festival ever. We have three brand new things that we've never had that I've come up with that I think you're really going to like. We're bringing back some things from the past that we haven't had in a while, and then all the normal things, all the competitions and shows that you're used to, we will have there as well. So I really hope that you can come June 24th to 30th, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Well, if there are no other questions, I think we'll draw this to a close, because usually it's about a half hour, and we reached that. But I appreciate all of you watching, and I hope that if you're not supporting the IJA through Patreon, that you'll consider doing that. The IJA does things all over the world, different juggling events, competitions. We put out eJuggle, the online magazine. The IJA does things all over the world to support the art of juggling. I hope you can support them as well. Thank you all so much. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to get out of this. Oh, sorry. IJA, one-time member fee. Can you explain that better? I don't know exactly what you're referring to. It's a yearly fee. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what to tell you with that. If you go to juggle.org, it should all be explained there. You may be talking about the Patreon. I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, but sorry about that. All right, well, I'm going to try and close this out. This is the first time doing this without someone kind of guiding me to do the whole live stream, and I'm glad. Oh, yeah, is there a lifetime membership? Yes, there is, Nathan. For a long time, they took it away, but I believe it is back. You can join lifetime membership, I believe. I'm a lifetime member myself. Any 7-ball tips for a beginner? Practice, practice, practice. Get really good at 6-ball fountain, and also practice the sight swap 7-5 in both directions with 6 can help. 5 balls really high can help as well. But I can juggle 7 balls, I can juggle 8 balls, but I'm not a great ball juggler. Ball juggling is not my forte, unless it's ball bouncing, and then I can pretty good. All right, let's see if there's any other last-minute questions that I can answer. I don't see anything. All right, folks, thank you so much for viewing. I'm going to try and get us out of here if I can. Hmm.